Let's see, just gotta pick the next plot for the new city and...
Mr. Mayor, thanks so much for seeing me.
I'm a busy man. You've got 10 seconds. Make it quick.
Well, you see, Mr. Mayor, aliens have finally landed to punish humanity's sin by vaporizing all them nearby casinos in a fit of divine judgment.
Look, old timer, I don't have time for this. Now,
There they are!
I don't want to live in this city anymore. SimCity is a game that has perplexed me for a long time. Since I was 5, I would take this very cartridge, put it in my machine, mess around with it for a few minutes, get bored, and quit. I always thought, this is a grown-ups game and I'm too young to understand it. As I entered my teen years, every couple of years I would revisit the game, thinking that with my older wit and intellect I would be able to master the nuance that would produce the result of a good city. Even these attempts would inevitably end in confusing failure. Eventually, I just stopped trying to play the game altogether, putting it, or so I thought, eternally to rest among my SNES library. That's where last week found me, as I picked up the familiar old cartridge and held it in my hand, staring it down for one final go, my untested adult wisdom and intellect against its time-tested difficulty. I got annihilated. SimCity is a really, really hard game to get into. In spite of its difficulty though, SimCity's game structure is incredibly simple, with nearly all of its features available from the moment that you turn the game on. Ignoring practice mode, there are 2 ways to play the game. The first option is a sort of free mode where you select your map, name your city, and build it up the way that you think is the best. You'll have to manage crime, taxes, transportation, building layouts, the kind of basic things you can expect involving management of a city. Typically the goal is to get more people in your city, with milestones set at various population marks, with the final mark being Megalopolis at 500,000 and a pseudo-hidden mark at 600,000. Simple enough, right? The second game mode is called Scenario, in which you take on the challenges presented by different cities around the world. Each city has a unique issue with it that you must tackle in order to win. Sometimes it's crime, sometimes it's Bowser. You get the picture. Beating all 6 of the scenarios will unlock 2 special scenarios. The first one has you dealing with random alien attacks in Las Vegas. The second one is an endless scenario where you can build freely on a map with no water whatsoever. It appropriately takes place in Free City, USA. And all that seems pretty basic, right? But it's not. And that leaves me sitting here wondering, thinking of the best way to convey to you just what my SimCity experience is. The concept of a choose-your-own-adventure book comes to mind, as there are just so many different ways to approach dissecting this game. What I want to do is sit here and scream into the mic about all the ways the game is unplayable, but clearly that statement cannot be true, as a simple search of SNES SimCity on the internet will bring all sorts of successful cities that other people have built. In good conscience though, I don't think I could ever call this game good, or even enjoyable by the average gamer, for a vast number of confusing and frustrating game choices that are too numerous to count on even 2 hands. But out of all my options to approach this game, let me start with the good. I feel like that's the fairest. Starting with some surface level observations, this game looks great, and portrays to the highest extent just what city simulating on the SNES can be. The graphics of the buildings are very varied. There are 46 different building graphics for just the basic building structures of the game. Add the special gift buildings, utilities, stadiums, and more, and you've got a game that can produce complicated and great cityscapes. The maps you can build on are huge as well, both in size as well as number. There are 2,000 maps to choose from. 2,000! I would think that the choice of maybe like 20 would suffice, but Maxis really wanted to pull out all the stops in this area. While not related directly to gameplay, the music is also pretty good, with catchy and original themes depending on how big your city has grown. Early on, songs are quiet and peaceful, and then by the time you get your city to the Metropolis level, the music is loud and bustling, simulating the crowded city. The best part of the game, though, is the potential it carries inside itself, and the people who have spent the last quarter century finding it. While the developers of SimCity surely knew that it was possible to reach a population of over 600,000 in their game, they also likely knew that very few gamers would ever reach beyond that number or even get close to it. As such, the game is kind of just designed around you hitting that mark, but players over the years have pushed it much, much further, up into even double that amount. Assuming it isn't a forgery, there's an image online of a person who has crafted a city that reached a population of over 1,200,000. How did they reach this mark? Well, a lot of factors add into it, but the quick explanation is 25 years of heated strategical debate over the best city building strategies for the game, and that is amazing. Even though a bit later I'm going to relate some things about this game that I don't like, the fact that even after all these years people are still playing SimCity for the SNES and still adding and discovering new things about it is a monumental status that cannot be denied. Just go to GameFAQs and you'll see recent activity. One guide was updated just last year, and a completely new strategy guide was written just 2 years ago. It's great to see people still adding their thoughts to an already large database. As for the strategies that are discussed, they started out with simple arguments about better building techniques. Do you use strips, or do you use donuts? But it quickly became much more complicated, using building phrases like single elemental monorail or lateral shift patterns to describe the complicated building placements and structures. I'm not even going to pretend I understand them all, but I can tell you this. The people who love SimCity still love SimCity, and as far as I can tell, still play the game to this day, trying to crack the code on a building pattern that is just slightly better than their last one. Unfortunately, this is where my praises for the game end, because for the rest of us who don't know SimCity like the back of our hand, it is a hellish nightmare that can suck out an unforgiving amount of time without giving any hint of reward or success back. For starters, what seems like a simple game on the surface is deviously complicated underneath. The instruction manual for the game is 84 pages long. I'm not even making that up. I think if you added the length of maybe like 3 or 4 other games' instruction manuals, you might reach like half that number. But yeah, 84 pages. And most every page is filled with instruction after instruction after instruction. This is good because you'll need all this information to even have a chance of playing the game successfully, but it's laid out in a way that's almost like a step-by-step tutorial. While this might sound good, in functionality it's not. For a game like this, you don't want a narrative tutorial, you want charts, statistics, definitions, and numbers. This means that anytime you want to try and learn about something specific in the game, you have to flip through all the narratives to find the section that you want, and then you have to read through a paragraph or two just to find the information you were looking for. Next, if you think that reading through the entire manual front to back will teach you how to play the game, you're wrong. The manual is very vague on a lot of fronts. It tells you that you don't want crime, but it doesn't tell you why. It doesn't say what the effects of crime are. It doesn't tell you if there is a losing condition because of crime. It doesn't tell you if it has an effect on the population growth. It just says, build police stations. Thanks. The manual also says build roads, but it doesn't tell you how or what criteria the roads must have in order to count as successfully functioning roads. Does the road have to touch all the surface area of a zone to be counted? Are roads debunked if they connect directly to a rail? Do the roads have to connect one zone to another? Do you need to use a mix of road and rail to be successful? The fact is that the game manual actually misinforms the player on several fronts, including this one, stating that rails should all be connected to one another, which is just not even true. We don't have the time to go into it, but the manual is just full of these kinds of shenanigans. A game must build trust with the player by providing them a clear and solid understanding of the rules while they play it, and this game fails to do that. And we aren't even playing it yet! Once you get into the game, the tirade of misinformation continues. You start off the process thinking, wow, there's a lot of buttons, this seems kind of complicated. Then suddenly Dr. Wright jumps in telling you things are going to be okay and that he'll guide you when you need it. This is initially comforting until you realize that Dr. Wright has no idea what he's talking about, and is no more qualified to help you than the instruction manual if it suddenly animated itself and started talking and walking around. He has the same problem as the manual where he gives vague advice that is generally good, but in short fails to provide the necessary details to actually handle the situations at hand. Dr. Wright, you're telling me that people are unhappy because of housing costs and unemployment. You tell me that I need to put commercial and industrial zones closer to their residences. But how much closer can I put them other than their own backyard? These people aren't unemployed, they're lazy. These kinds of things just go on and on. The game tells you your rail system is inadequate when it's fine. It tells you need more roads when you don't. Fire stations are pretty much useless. Parks are supposedly bugged so that they don't actually lower pollution like they're supposed to. Many of the buildings don't actually need power to function. Roads only need to touch a zone and nothing else. They don't even need to make sense in order to count. Oh, and here's one you're gonna love. Out of all the different building types, there are 2 kinds of buildings that you actually don't want. First off, identifying them is hard enough. How the heck am I supposed to know that this is a hospital and this is a school? Look, I know it seems obvious when I point them out, but I had no idea that these building types could even occur from the residence zones. But the reason that you want to destroy them is because apparently they have no population value whatsoever. You literally don't want hospitals and schools in your town. What kind of mechanic is that? And don't even get me started on the scenarios. You'd think that they'd be the clear parts of this game. You would think that, hey, Detroit has a lot of crime. Go clean up the crime would translate to fixing Detroit's crime problems, right? Wrong. You have to fix the crime, fix the traffic, grow the population, fix the pollution. I want to scream about how bad it is to force the player to uphold objectives that you aren't even telling them about. But these are things you need to learn in order to play the game, I hear some enthusiast of the game shout out. No, I reply. A game should be playable dependent on the instructions it gives you, and then contingent upon you putting all the pieces together more and more effectively as the game goes on. It should not be dependent upon misinforming the player, or not telling the player something outright. The RCI graph at the top right is almost useless. The demands of your city fluctuate so intently, especially on hard mode, that the information that it presents is almost never accurate. LVC, or land value cross, that occurs at the end of the game is crippling to any residency that you have on the outskirts of the city. And I don't even have the time to explain to you what that means. Playing the game, quote, legitimately when it comes to money, and like actually earning it, doesn't involve skill or strategy. It just involves cutting the funding to the police and fire department and a lot of waiting, to the point where online, it's almost just universally expected that if you're going to be playing the game, you're going to be using the infinite money cheat. Even with this cheat, due to the unseen mechanics warping your city from left to right, I still had to follow a tool-assisted speedrun of a megalopolis city just to get the footage for it. This game is a massive confusing network of processing variables and a lot of trying something, waiting for a long time, failing, and then trying again, and failing again. It's almost like, wait, what does that line say in the manual? Let me see here. Your job is to try different solutions until one works. Wow. Well, there you have it. The one true fact in the manual, and it only serves to tell you how the game was designed just to have you throw things against the wall until something sticks. Amazing. Look, I know every game in some way is like trying something until it works, but it's just like I said earlier. The player should be presented with all the pieces of the puzzle first, so that if the player fails, the player understands that it's their own fault for not putting the pieces together correctly. Not because they just weren't told something, or the game never explains how things work. Okay, I'll be done. The truth is, when I'm watching someone else play this, when I'm watching someone else exhibit a city building strategy that they've cultivated since the time they were a child and unwrapped SimCity on Christmas morn to now, I'm genuinely impressed with what this game can accomplish, and I love watching it. When it comes to playing it though, I just feel like the game is a mess of unsatisfying challenges and completely unclear mechanics. If you love SimCity, I apologize for the rant, and I thank you for existing in this world so that you can explain to idiots like me all the crazy things I don't understand. For the rest of you though, take it from me. You probably just want to save yourself the agony and avoid this one. Either way, I think I can safely say that I'm finally done with this game. So I send you on your way, wishing that your cities may grow, your crime be sparse, and your populations abound. Thanks for watching, and until next time, this has been SNES Legacy, signing off.